is he really that great an actor?
I know.
For everyone, including Herzog, to tolerate this behavior? Or more is it like, hey, guess what? This is the last movie we're ever going to do together. Bye.
Yeah,
you know, like and just be like done with it.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
What's up, everybody? I was trying to do that. I don't know if that came through at all. But it's 1 fucking hour time, everybody. I'm Evan Husney, and to my left, we got Big T, Tom Fitz G. What's going on? How you doing?
Doing good. Let's get back to business.
All right. We're going to do that. We're going to do that business with my man to my right. We got Mr. Marcus Herring. What's going on? Welcome back.
Thank you. What's up, everybody? Good to be here.
Yeah, man. We had a little week off. I think we enjoyed our, holiday week. Of course, I was in Paris, and now I'm back.
Whoa.
I had a little fun time across the pond, but I'm back, ready to get back into this shit. Of course, this is the show where we talk about one goddamn movie for 1 fucking hour. And tonight's film, so glad we're finally doing this. This has been one that's been on my list to do for a very, very long time, ever since we started the show. And guess what? You guys picked it. This is a movie you guys voted for. It was a very tough race. We had a poll on our Instagram, of course, and you guys picked Werner Herzog's Aguirre, Wrath of God from 1972.
Just a reminder, though, what were the other choices? Just a reminder.
Yeah. Well, in case you don't know, what we've been doing here on the show for the last several weeks, and it's going to extend through the summer, is we're doing this little gimmick thing here. Tonight is episode 72 of the show. So, of course, we're doing a movie from 1972, but we're letting y'all pick which movie it is. And we've been doing that going all the way back to 1967 and so forth. So we put up a poll on our Instagram page, and the options for 1972 were Pink Flamingos was one that was on the list. Probably the runner-up for tonight's film was Last House on the Left. Very close race.
Damn.
With and of course Aguirre was the one you picked, and then the other film would have been great, but it didn't quite make it to the top ranks, was Heartbreak Kid, which we got to do at some point. We're definitely going to do it at some point.
We'll get there. Yeah, I mean, if we did the remake, we might as well do the original at some point.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So, but guys, all of our, I'm so excited because our listeners, viewers have incredible taste. You guys have been picking bangers after bangers for each of the films we've been doing in this series. So it's awesome to be able to do this movie, our second Herzog film that we've ever covered on the show. And this is a big one, man. This is a top tier, top shelf Herzog. So very excited. But before we get into the show, real quick, a quick plug for us. Because if you guys like the show, you like listening to it, you like watching us, this is the best way to support the show. And that, of course, is our Patreon. Patreon.com/onefuckinghour. It's $5 a month to sign up, and it is the only place where you can get our 1 fucking hour audio commentary tracks. We are recording feature-length audio commentary tracks to new flicks every month, and we've done, what have we done? We've done Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we did Star Wars, and recently the 1998 misfire remake of Psycho by Gus Van Sant. The biggest change they make in this film is that you hear Vince Vaughn here. Everybody turn up your volume. You hear him fapping. You hear him jerking his fucking prick right here.
Yep. Yeah, it's in full color fappening audio, right there.
But
Listen.
which is a lot of fun. So if you want to watch that flick with us, that's the way to do it. But we're going to do something a little different for the next commentary track, which may or may not be up by the time you're seeing this episode right now as we record. we're going to throw it out to you guys. We're going to create another poll for the Patreon. So if you want to head over to our Instagram page, if you're watching this, again, within 24 hours of the original broadcast of tonight's show, you'll be able to vote on what the next audio commentary track is that we're going to cover on the Patreon.
Because we've gone poll crazy here. This is now a new second poll that we're starting to take.
You guys love polls.
Poll crazy.
We have to do a poll to see whether or not people are liking these polls, I think.
Yeah.
No, they are. They are. I mean, we're definitely getting hundreds of votes on these, so I can tell that people are into it. So, all right, here's the 4 titles you're going to be able to pick from. You can vote with, or you can vote for right now on our Instagram page at One Fucking Hour.
And if what wins, we are going to watch the entire film.
Yep.
And talk about it like it's a classic DVD commentary, first frame to last frame.
There you go. That'll be
4
it.
choices.
So, 4 choices. Here they are. Okay, this is an interesting grouping of films. Requiem for a Dream.
Caveat.
Please don't pick that one.
Caveat.
Caveat. It's a terrible movie. We hate it, and we're going to be suffering while we watch it, but you'll be probably enjoying us suffering watching it.
As we say here, it's going to go in the Duncan booth.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We've covered it on a Movies We Hate episode in the past. Shout out. So it's going to be Requiem for a Dream, audio commentary, Scarface, audio commentary.
1983 Scarface.
Yep, we'll be having a fucking blast with Scarface with y'all. Or Hard Right Turn, we'll be doing the Wayans Brothers' Little Man.
Okay.
Or Hard Left Turn, David Lynch's Blue Velvet. So
whoa,
you guys,
it's in your hands.
It's in your hands. The fate of whatever we're gonna watch, a whole entire movie, record a commentary track. Requiem for a Dream, Scarface, Little Man, Blue Velvet.
That's right. Make these little monkeys dance to whatever tune you want. Exactly. We're going to do one of those 4, and it's in your hands.
Yeah, so there you go. The poll's up right now on the Instagram page. If you're watching this, again, within 24 hours of the broadcast, at One Fucking Hour, get in our Instagram stories, vote for which film you want, and of course, sign up for the fucking Patreon so you can watch this audio commentary track. Patreon.com/One Fucking Hour. Okay, enough of the plug. Time for the show. You guys ready to do this? Let's fucking hour on Aguirre, Wrath of God from 1972 for our episode 72, directed by Werner Herzog. All right, so I'm gonna get my notes in order here, boys. I got a lot of notes. I don't know about you guys, but I got some notes.
We got the clock rocking.
Clock is coming. Oh, we got to reset that clock. Okay, here we go. Clock is being reset, and here we go. Boom. All right. Okay, of course, just a little setup here for the folks at home on tonight's flick. So Werner Herzog's Aguirre Wrath of God follows the story of Don Lope de Aguirre, played to amazing perfection by Klaus Kinski in this film, who is a ruthless Spanish conquistador who vies for power while part of an expedition in Peru to find El Dorado, the mythical 7 cities of gold. Accompanied by his daughter Flores, Aguirre faces off against his superior Don Pedro de Ursua and grows increasingly volatile after seizing control of the group. As Aguirre presses deeper into the Amazonian jungle, he descends further into madness. Okay, so I mean, this is Herzog in general, obviously amazing. We had covered his film Stroszek, another masterpiece, previously on the show. He's one of my favorite filmmakers, and actually Aguirre and Stroszek kind of vie for, or kind of tied almost for my favorite movies of Herzog, and they're both just all-star amazing films. And I think one of the things that really makes it's something we definitely like, a quality of film that we like and we talk a lot about on this channel is sort of a documentary quality, a sort of realism that's brought to these movies. We definitely champion that here, and this movie is so unique in the fact that it's like a doc realism feel, but for a story that's set in 1560. So I mean, how about that?
Yeah, it's played so flat, as if somehow some 60 millimeter cameras were just witnessing these conquistadors, trothing down a mountain to a river, and it's played straight, except for the incredible score, the soundtrack, which we'll talk about extensively, of course. But
there is obviously the doc quality that he gives this movie. It does kind of chafe a little bit at moments with heightened, set pieces of stylization and almost surrealism, dreamlike, fever dream madness. But it has its footing, I would say, in that style. And I think what's really cool about that is, like most period pieces, especially, classic Hollywood period pieces and everything, when you're doing a movie set in this time, it still has this kind of, general film cinematic feel. But this having this really like authentic, like going for the authenticity of the time, but also making it like, I don't know, in like the visual style that we're used to with doc filmmaking, it's just such a cool way to approach this.
Just
like a handheld.
Just the camera happens to be a fly on the wall capturing it. It's a very strange category. It's kind of its own, maybe, or at least the first of I call it historical naturalism, which is a strange beast. Maybe Pasolini touched on that earlier on with his Jesus film, but that's probably the closest that I can think of. There's maybe a few small films, but no, but the thing is, what's interesting is, like you were saying earlier, it's like it might be naturalism, the film making style, but there's some fantastical things that are happening to this camera that is observing the situation. A crazed group of wild monkeys and a cannibal tribe on fire, so it's not like it's a fantastical circumstance often happening in front of this cold observational 60 millimeter camera that fell from the sky in 1516.
Right. Yeah. And the fact that too, that this is also a very low budget production, something that I think is also miraculous about this movie is that it's able to create this epic period piece, sweeping, crazy prog rock, just epic movie, but just with a very small budget. It was $360,000. The crew was no more than 8 people, like 8 technicians working on this movie. Wow. It's even hard to put into like the fact that they are living like the people that you see on screen. I mean, they're living in straw huts. Sometimes those straw huts are floating down the river, alongside the rafts that the actors are acting on. This is a very, like the script is kind of haphazard. It's written in prose, and Herzog's writing the dialogue on the fly. Herzog, by the way, is only 28 years old when he's making this movie, which is also hard to put into context. A guy like that to have that command, over a...
No, I know. And if I'm not mistaken, the shoot you can just assume was as difficult as any shoot ever, except maybe Fitzcarraldo later for Herzog.
Yeah, right.
But I heard things like the set, or whatever you want to call it, where they were filming, flooded, unexpectedly. So he wrote in that there was flooding for, the crew who was going down the river in this narrative,
Yeah,
right?
that's something. Well, that's something that's so cool about him, about Werner as a director. And that's something that's actually really inspiring to me, or was especially inspiring to me when I thought one day I could be my own filmmaker, director, but just reading in his, when he would write about making movies, or his approach, his philosophy to making films was always about embracing the elements, and that was something to me that was very inspiring. Just this idea of like, you go out and you shoot and it fucking rains. No, you don't push the schedule. You work the rain into the story, into the scene that's there. And that, cool. and that moment you mentioned, which happened on set, they had shot for the day, they had gone to sleep, and then while they were sleeping, the river had risen 15 feet, basically entrenching, engulfing the set, basically the edges of the land. And so it actually caused the rafts to float away. All the rafts floated away, and so they lost all the rafts, and so they had to rebuild the rafts, which you see in the film, shot doc style. So he incorporated that into the movie, that, okay, we lost the rafts, it flooded, we got to build them, so now that becomes part of the story.
All the vigorous chopping in the background is in the service of making the film's new rafts.
Yeah, wow. I know. Yeah, and so
Aguirre, man.
I know, and that's just... it's just amazing. It really adds to the whole experience of the movie. One more quick thing, just to kind of put a bow on just the context of where he's making this. As we said, so he's 28 years old. He's got this script that he's kind of writing on the fly. Most of the movie is shot with only one camera, which blows my mind. That one single camera, which of course, infamously, Herzog had practically stolen from one of the German sort of film club. I don't know.
He
one of
did
these
steal it right from the film school, but he
yeah.
But he said he works backwards and says like I needed a camera to make films, and this was a very simple 35 millimeter camera. So I feel like it kind of came to me. I deserved it, so I didn't really steal it. I needed it,
Well, it was like a justification.
I didn't take it. I needed it. Is what he said.
Yeah. But he stole
Well,
it.
he made AGUIRRE, so fuck it.
Yeah.
Right.
No, he made like most of his 70s movies on it. So
Okay, right.
it's
Better.
like crazy. Yeah. So anyway, but the movie shot with one camera, which blows my mind. You're seeing all these huge set pieces. Again, a 28-year-old guy who's directing like 400 extras in the beginning of the movie.
And they're in a very remote setting, right? In Peru or something.
Machu Picchu. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So and it's probably miles away from a telephone or a car, right?
Yeah, it was like 10 to 15 miles outside of like civilization, but civilization is, very it's in quotes. But also, but he's doing everything with this movie. He's holding the fort down. We're going to get into this in the hour here. He's battling his lead star, Klaus Kinski, on a daily basis, who's a madman, and he's trying to rein him in. He's trying to rein in the locals that he's cast as the extras. Like the natives, and just trying to make this very, very, very complicated film. He's doing the costuming himself. Like he went and sourced all the costumes for this film, which is pretty amazing. There was no costume designer. It was 5 weeks shoot for this movie, and he only had, which blows my mind, 5 to 6 weeks of editing, which is insane.
What?
To me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this movie had no money. And it was we had to make it quick and we had to make it fast. And so that's just incredible to me. Like just putting all that in context for how epic this movie is.
It really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's just such an interesting filmmaker in general. Cause like he's got, I can't think of another director who makes as many good docs as they do narratives, I mean, I know that a lot of people dip their toes in both. Scorsese's got docs or whatever, but I think like just the level of Herzog's docs are just beyond like they're and the fact that they measure up to his narrative films. And I guess a lot of my favorite Herzog films, like you said, are like this, that have that sort of documentary style. And in this one, like you see water droplets like on the lens, so it's like you can tell he's letting that happen. It's on his mind too. He wasn't like, I don't need that, cut that shot out.
Yeah.
He wanted that realism, and I think it's like, in a way, this production like sort of mirrors like what's going on in the story too, right? Because it's like these conquistadors are in the Amazon. It's very dangerous. The river's this powerful force, but then Herzog's out there making this film in the same kind of haphazard way. Like the folly is almost like mirrored in the filmmaking. Yeah. But the art and the conquistadors fail, but then the art is actually successful. Like the art, he didn't die making the film. I feel like
he's also a European coming into a very foreign landscape. So there's it's analogous there in that way.
I feel like just the documentary style helps like give it a sense of danger. You've got this low budget movie, and you're introducing like some action scenes or whatever. And I feel like, not a lot like unites all of Herzog's works. It's like all over the place, but like his worldview seems kind of consistent throughout. Yeah. And a lot of times there is like this element of like danger in the filmmaking itself. Like Fitzcarraldo, even Grizzly Man or whatever. It feels like, that filmmaking was a dangerous film, to be made. Yeah. So I feel like when he's like short on money, you can pull this kind of switch that's like this little trick where it's like you're embracing the danger. You're making the filmmaking is dangerous. And I don't know, we also see that like in, Apocalypse Now or something, the same kind of movie. Sure. Which is, I guess directly, Francis has said it's directly influenced by this film,
That's confirmed because you really feel it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
He did like run the film and watch it once in a while.
Well, one thing you said, which I'm glad that you did, was like the idea of the water droplets on the lens. Because to me, that's one of the things that really does make it like register as like doc style to me in a lot of ways. Like to see that any other film would have cleaned that lens, and we have to redo this take. And it's interesting because I listened to the audio commentary earlier today. And most of the scenes that you're seeing in the movie, like them coming down the mountain or them on the rafts or like even Kinski's monologues, a lot of these things, it's so like kind of lightning in a bottle every single time they're doing these shots that there's only one take. Like there's no other multiple takes of this stuff. Right. It's all capturing it really as it's happening. And I think that is to put a bow on your point, Marcus, is like, I think what makes him both a great like narrative filmmaker and a great documentary filmmaker is that he's able to spot these kind of like magical moments that are happening on screen, whether it's like, reality. Well, I guess it is reality, reality if it's happening in a narrative or a doc film.
Like those monkeys are that is a documentary of those monkeys behaving at the end of the film. I was thinking about that, rewatching it. It was like, that's just footage of these monkeys behaving in their own way.
Or it's like, at the top of the show, when I was doing the, that guy was just a dude like in the village that, who is, it had some intellectual disabilities that Herzog saw and was just like, well, we got to put him in the movie. He's got to be in the movie and let him do his thing. So he also has that quality to it.
Shades of Bruno S.
It is definitely, absolutely. So
it seems like this is sort of like a planned reality. Like they spent months or like weeks or whatever planning out what's going to happen,
right?
And then
Whatever
devising
happens.
the best way to shoot it, And just to like kind of explain like what we mean by the doc style, like just there's the handheld cameras always there, and a lot of the scenes take place like in these wide shots, like there's not a lot of editing in some moments, like it's almost like a 3D play or something, or a doc, I guess, but it's like a single camera capturing a large scene happening and kind of unfolding, and your eye is following the action, but it's not edited. It's almost like the opposite of Hitchcock or something, where they're like the guy puts there's all these insert shots of like the gas pedal and the
the coverage,
all that shit. All the coverage. It's like almost the opposite of that, where it's just like you let the scene play out like in one just kind of master shot. One thing I was like really marveling at, and this time was that, and the wide angle lens is kind of used as an editing style sometimes, someone will push into the wide angle and they'll get really big in the frame. Like Kinski might push through the audience, push through the crowd and get really big in the frame. And all of a sudden he is like the focus, and he's got a close up there all of a sudden when it was just a master wide shot.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that. It was like how the wide angle almost took the place of the editing in some shots, because you could like focus the attention. Anyway, those are the kind of the elements of like documentary.
It cuts within the same frame in that sense, as far as focus of the attention.
Yeah, and like there is also just while we're on the subject, as you were mentioning, there is a lot of choreography going on in terms of like how are we going to capture this. You see very elaborate towards the end of the film, which we'll get into in more detail, of course. But, when they're circling the raft, and they're on like a speedboat that's slow circling the raft to create that sort of spinning kind of effect. But then there's also loosey-goosey stuff too, where the cinematographer who's, amazing, Thomas, I don't know how to say it, Thomas Mauk. I don't know how to say his name, but he was the DP for most of Herzog's classic films of this classic era. And you can also see him kind of just like, there's a great little set piece when Klaus Kinski is talking to a man who's imprisoned in like a sort of tree, or like a tree made cage, I guess. I don't know if you kind of remember that scene, and the camera is just kind of like finding the frame through the bars, and is really just like, you can see this guy is just like just searching for that frame as the actors are moving, and it's this very loose, really, really, really cool like compositions, and that's just like the instincts of an amazing cameraman and cinematographer in that moment. So it's cool. It has a mixture of both of those things, like a spontaneity, but also something that's more like how do we gonna capture this epic shit with one camera. So but if we can, I just wanted to kind of get into a little bit of the backstory, so we can then of course talk about the set pieces more in detail. So The origin of this story of this movie rather is very simple. Okay, so Herzog once upon a time went over to his friend's house. Okay, and his friend was always on the phone when he would appear at his house, and so he was bored, and he decided Herzog decided to look through his book collection, and he just basically randomly thumbed through them and found one book, grabbed it, opened it to a random page, and by coincidence, there was a paragraph about the adventures and discoveries of a man named Lope de Aguirre. And so he looked at it, read it, and was so fascinated that he rushed home and immediately wrote a screenplay about him in 2.5 days. Yeah.
That's great. Just total lightning out of the sky.
Yeah.
Kind of random inspiration. Amazing.
Totally crazy. So
he's an obscure guy. It's like Aguirre was a real historical figure. He did exist, and this is like you're probably going to say, like, this is based on a diary of like one of those monks, right?
No, because the monk. Okay. So the monk that's quoted in the very beginning, you see these opening title cards that show up that are subtitled, and it does say that the story you're about to see is based on this text by this monk. It's the only document to survive this lost expedition. It is his diary, Gaspar de Caravalle or whatever his name is. But basically, the real story is that the monk really was a real person in history, but his diaries were about a completely different expedition. And Herzog used his name for this made-up expedition. And it was very funny that Herzog actually kind of would fuck with historians quite a lot over this. Historians would basically reach out to me and like, where did you find these diaries? And then he would basically lean into it and say, well, and kind of create his own legend about these texts that didn't exist.
Okay.
So yes, Aguirre and that monk, they're real people, but most of the film, 95% of the film is all fabricated. I mean, maybe even more than that, to the point.
Like they weren't on the same raft, for starters, is what you're saying.
Not even close. No.
Like right off the bat. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But the story about El Dorado's, I mean, not that it's a real place, but that it's
a mythic place.
Right. The people in Peru or whatever were told the conquistadors that there was a magical golden city somewhere just to fuck with them, to get them away.
Bought it.
So the Amazon would swallow them up, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but this is a funny little anecdote. So basically, in these 2.5 days that Herzog is writing the screenplay, get this, most of the script was written on a bus ride with Herzog's soccer team, okay? So while he's on the bus sitting there typing away at his typewriter, all the players who had just played some game were celebrating by drinking and getting massively wasted. And so 200 miles into this trip, all of his soccer team player guys are wasted, and he's typing away, and the goalie seated behind him leans over and vomits all over the typewriter and pukes over all of it.
Shit.
And Herzog had to take these scenes, throw them out of the window, and those scenes were lost to time.
Wow.
And but this is the circumstance in which he's writing all of this. And so he wrote this script furiously on the bus during football games. And and not much is even really known about the real man, Lupo de Aguirre. Like there isn't even much evidence or documentation of his existence. There's practically only a few letters that still remain. So most of what you're seeing, Herzog's putting it all into that. So kind of fun, weird set of circumstances that get us.
Werner used this, to tell the story he wanted to tell.
Exactly.
Just let use the historical context, but let your imagination roll, right? Don't be restricted by historical accuracy.
No, of course. And so, of course, Klaus Kinski is a main part of this film, and he was a known actor at the time. And when he finished the script, so Herzog had known Klaus Kinski when they were very young. They were teenagers. They were in the same boarding house. And Kinski would sleep there with him and wreak havoc on everyone. As Herzog has said, he would cause chaos and just was a very disobedient child growing up, and he left.
It sounded like he was already an adult, maybe Kinski, right? Wasn't he already an actor by then? I think so, because I think
you might be right.
They talk about this in that great movie My Best Fiend that Herzog did. That's sort of like the story of him and Kinski's relationship. So good. Another great movie from '99, by the way. But
I love it. Love My Best Fiend. Yeah.
He talks about he was like 13 years old, and the boarding house lady had a soft spot for like artsy types, and he was already kind of like an artist, I think, like an actor. He said he was previously living down the street like in an attic that was filled up to like knee high with leaves, like dry leaves, and he would just sort of like wait for the mailman to show up and then traipse around naked to the door, like knee high in leaves. This is what Kinski was doing before he moved in to the house where Herzog lived as a 13-year-old.
That's right.
And he was telling just all these whack stories about Kinski locking himself in the bathroom for 48 hours and just screaming, a lot of 48 hours straight until the police came.
Screaming.
So this is the guy that he knew all this about the guy ahead of already, and I think he'd already been in films, right? By that,
yes, he was.
This was the 50s, and I think Kinski had been acting since like the late 40s, right? So like he'd already kind of, I don't know if he'd seen those movies yet, but he had, so he had this weird relationship with him briefly when Herzog was a kid, and then Herzog would watch his films and just thought he was such a great performer.
Yeah, he was in tons of films in the 60s, and he was in a ton of stuff, and he had not thought of him while he was writing the script, but when he had finished it, he knew that he would cast Klaus Kinski. It was right around that time,
the character's a madman. I mean,
yeah, you need one.
Get a madman to play a madman.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So he sent him the script, and Klaus Kinski loved it. I mean, he immediately loved it. He loved the role, and then of course immersed himself in it, as we'll see as the movie, as he would go into production, and as we'll get into, of course, with some of the on-set antics that went on. But Herzog refers to him in the audio commentary track as a, quote, pestilence every day on set. So we will get into that a little bit.
How bad could it be? I mean, like, I'm not that well versed in the problems between those two guys. Like, how bad? I need like one anecdote if you have it. Either
I don't think it's even like
on the set.
Just between them. I think he's just a monster in general. Like I said, he was like screaming in the bathroom, to nobody. But I think that was normal for him. I
mean, on the set of Aguirre, though. Like,
okay, well,
what do you do?
In My Best Fiend, it starts with him like on stage, like doing this production of Jesus, where Kinski thinks he's doing a one-man show where he's Jesus, and he's getting into a combative like fight with the audience, like almost like Iggy Pop or something, and he's like telling the audience to come on stage and yelling at them, and like he's very confrontational, and he's like storms off and leaves, and he actually left that production to join this one. There's recordings from like on-set recordings of the fights, like on Fitzcarraldo and stuff, and Kinski's just unleashing just vile insults, screaming at the top of his lungs at the crew members. It's almost like if you weren't watching, if you like stumbled in the room and it was on, you'd think it was that like that Hitler meme where the guy's like from the 2000s movie where the Hitler's like screaming. That's what it sounds like on set.
Bruno Ganz.
It sounds like Kinski.
Downfall. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It sounds like Downfall. It sounds like that's Kinski just
he wasn't much of a team player. Is that what you guys are saying?
Let me give you the anecdote you're searching for here. I have a specific anecdote here. Basically, he just took things too far, I think is what Herzog would say. He was he would cross lines, cross boundaries. Like there's a scene where in the actual film where he like hits a guy in the head with his fucking sword, and if he wasn't wearing a helmet, he would have split the guy's fucking skull open, like things like that. But here's the main one. Here's kind of the one of the bigger ones. There's actually two big ones. I guess we can get into it real quick. So, Klaus Kinski was a known actor. He had already been working. He was really the only person that sort of had any level of, I guess, like privilege, you could say, on set. Like he had he had like, I guess, the equivalent of his own trailer, on this film by having his own hut, because many of the people in the film, like the extras was like 40 of them crammed into one hut. He had his own, right? So, And most of the people had to drink the water out of the river, and he got his spring water, brought in from civilization and stuff. So he's on a different plane on this set.
Okay.
And so anyway, so one night, the extras who routinely every night would get wasted, smashed, drunk, and they were super noisy, super loud, and they drank every night, and Klaus Kinski was fucking pissed. And so he started yelling and raving and yelling, and then he got his Winchester rifle out. And he just fucking fired 3 bullets into one of the huts that had 45 people inside.
Like indiscriminately.
Indiscriminately.
And I could be hitting someone right now.
And Herzog says on the commentary, the fact that he didn't kill any of them is a miracle, but he did shoot the tip off of one of their fingers.
Oh, shit.
And
so not a team player. I see what we got here. Okay.
So then Herzog immediately confiscates the rifle, and that's when he drops the quote, he would go too far quite often on set. But, of course, Herzog still has that rifle and cherishes it to this day.
Oh, yeah?
And Kinski would say, you'll be yelling at Herzog, you're a megalomaniac.
Yeah.
And Herzog.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
It's on the level of like bad behavior of like, creative people on set, bad behavior. It seems like it's the top tier. Like I can't, there's like Christian Bale yelling at somebody.
Was that Lily
David,
Tomlin?
like directors.
No.
David O. Russell.
David O. Russell yelling at Lily Tomlin.
You're a cunt.
Right.
Yeah. It's insane. But yeah, and then of course the infamous story, just while we're here, we can get into it.
Yeah.
The infamous story that's kind of grown into a legend is that there was a moment on set where Klaus Kinski was just going to leave. He was going to walk off set. He was going to leave the film. Obviously the conditions were really harsh and I'm sure insane as they're making this film. And so basically Herzog said, hey, if you leave, I'm going to fucking shoot you and I'm going to kill you. if he did that to them.
I believe it. I would believe him.
Of course. And Klaus Kinski later reported in the newspapers, he would tell the story during interviews and said that he had a gun out and pointed at him, which Herzog says he didn't. But he says on the commentary about this, Herzog says, quote, I would have shot him. There was no doubt, and the bastard understood somehow it was not a joke. Somehow I outgutted him. I was more determined than he was. And then he says after that he behaved for like 10 days.
Nice. Because Herzog met his match or met Herzog and Kinski and then exceeded it. And because you got to that's like a training human behavior kind of thing. It's like, I see your insanity. I see you're indiscriminately shooting at people. Like, here we go. Here's the next step. Like, I'm going to straight up drop
I'm gonna
you
kill
where you
you.
stand.
I heard it was at the end, like the last 2 days, they only had 2 days of shooting left. And that's when he was threatening to leave. And in that circumstance, it does seem kind of reasonable, actually, of all the shit that everyone went through. People are losing fingers and stuff, look, we got to finish this.
And they probably didn't. Well, Herzog was untested. I mean, he had some small art house films before this. I could see a lot of people, including Kinski, thinking, is this even going to be finished, edited, come out? Like, what is this? Like, like a lot of the films that we love and some of them that we cover, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A lot of people were like, this isn't even going to play a movie theater.
Star Wars.
Why are we even? Kind of, yeah. Well, you know what I mean? So I think like having no faith in this film, like even reaching the finish line in any way, much less what happened to this film, Aguirre. I think having no faith. Yeah, you're right. It's kind of like Star Wars. It's funny.
But you're right in that like he found a way to harness Klaus Kinski's energy and how to manipulate him and to how to direct him ultimately in this film. I mean, you talk about the screaming Marcus, like how he would scream for days and it locked in the bathroom in his youth. And he knew that about him and he would use that to effect. Case in point, there's one of the big set pieces in the film when they burn that village and, there's that scene where the woman, not Aguirre's daughter, but the other woman who wears all the dresses, and she like disappears and walks off into the jungle, never to be seen again, which is a great little poetic set piece there.
Love that.
But that's what kind of preempts Klaus Kinski's big monologue, where he's looking into the camera directly, and he says that I am the wrath of God or whatever he says. Klaus Kinski wanted to play that scene completely differently. He wanted to play it huge, yelling, screaming, frothing at the mouth, slipping into madness. And Herzog knew that would be wrong. And so what he did is he made Klaus Kinski just basically scream and yell to himself for about 2 hours. And until he had completely exhausted and tired him.
Right.
So then he would be in that right, silent, more dangerous mood for that scene.
Well, he'd be spent, all tuckered out. That sounds like child behavior. Marcus, help me out here.
Sure.
I'm not kidding. Like to let a kid just like, all right, have your tantrum, cycle through it, and you're going to want to take a nap in about 10 minutes. So
Right.
go ahead.
Don't take it all. Don't take the horrible things he's yelling at you too personally.
No, but what I mean is like just go and like instead of trying to stop the volcano, it's just like erupt, go, and then you know what, you're going to be sleepy soon. So
It is weird to have that other challenge of having a really strong personality actor. It's like not only is he a prima donna and really mean and explosive, but he also has all these opinions that he's sharing with you constantly about how you're supposed to be doing the movie, right? So he mentioned that at the beginning of like the very first shot, the amazing first shot of this movie when they're coming down the mountain there, that Kinski wanted it to be shot like Hollywood style you could see Machu Picchu, see the peak, and see everything, see that landscape. Like in a very picturesque postcard
like
style.
John Ford kind of.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
framing.
exactly. But then Herzog had a very clear, it also speaks to Herzog's just, sort of sophistication as a young filmmaker. He had a very clear idea. They did not want to do that. He had a very clear idea of how he wanted to shoot the landscape, but they had to have a big fight over that. And Kinski Herzog basically just took Kinski out of the shot and said, "Oh, you know what? You're not in this shot. You go sit
That's
over
the
there.
solution,
You go
yes.
somewhere else." And
Sit
then
it
they shot
out.
it without him. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Herzog didn't have juice. I don't know if Kinski would have cared. There's one thing I want to say about this whole Kinski thing in general is I have a vague understanding. Right now I know more because of you guys telling me than I did before. I don't really know Kinski because I've always thought like, is he worth it? Just on a fundamental level, like, is he really that great an actor
I know.
for everyone, including Herzog, to tolerate this behavior? Or more is it like, hey, guess what? This is the last movie we're ever going to do together. Bye.
I know.
Like and just be like done with it. Instead, like, gotta get like.
now
I'm
he did
just asking questions.
five fucking movies with this guy.
No, exactly. I mean,
Like-
it feels like, Herzog is kind of into sort of like art macho challenges. So I think that's part of it, like almost dying on the set is like also having your lead actor be so,
It's
volcanic, I
it's
get that,
one
but is he
of-
worth it? Like,
It's one of the strangest director-actor collaborations ever. I
Dysfunctional
think.
collabs,
Dysfunctional. It's very dysfunctional collab. Yeah.
I wonder if like the power of his acting, sometimes is lost just in the dubbing, or whatever. Like this film was like shot with him. Everyone is delivering English, I guess, lines.
What?
And then they
Really?
went back. Yeah. There's actually
think
some
so.
clips of it in. There's a great doc from '86 with Herzog, like doing a portrait of himself, and it has some clips of the English language version of the film. It's very weird.
Oh my God.
If I, AGUIRRE, want the birds to drop dead from the trees, then the birds will drop dead from the trees. I'm the wrath of God.
But so then they went back and dubbed it in German. But
Yeah.
so you're getting that sort of disconnect between the lips
Yeah.
moving and the sync and
Right.
stuff. And
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
so there's a great performance happening, but like there's just something not being a native German speaker that might be lost or something. And I mean, he does have an incredible look, Kinski.
He does.
Oh, yeah.
That's a face of the ages.
That's
The
probably
eyes,
what.
everything.
That's probably why he went with him for so long. Was the face?
I think
man.
so. It's almost it's like
Enormous
silent
eyes,
movie,
enormous mouth,
a silent movie
like-
kind of face.
Yeah. Well,
Huge features compared to everybody else. And
I
then
know
he's got
he's-
that sort of like, I don't know if it's hunchback. I don't know how to say it exactly. Well, he's got that sort of like, is he a hunch? I'm not sure. He's got like a certain sort of shoulder thing.
I think it's
or
just
something.
a pose, like a Richard III Shakespeare.
they
Right, so is that
worked
just
on
in
that. They worked
Yeah,
on
okay.
that. They worked on that a lot. They worked on
Yeah, I
that
bet.
signature hunchback for the performance. He always told Kinski to move like a crab or a spider. He wanted to find that way, and that really freaked people out. That freaked a lot of the people out on set. That thing. But I do have to kind of come in here because I'm looking at 24 minutes on the clock. I want to get into set pieces.
I was going to say, there's something I absolutely want to make sure that we get into. So let's do that. As far as set piece, we keep referring to the opening scene.
Yeah, let's do it.
But just to open this up, you guys take it. It's just half of this movie for me is the soundtrack, is the music by Popol Vuh. It makes me want to cry. It's like so powerful. I just listen to it, like
too.
on my headphones,
too.
like a lot. So
Fitzcarraldo.
it's just one of those things. I mean, the other stuff's great too. Heart of Glass is really killer too. That they did with Herzog.
Killer.
But just, does anybody have an insight on this band? How he started working with Herzog?
It's one guy. I mean,
Okay.
it's Florian Frech. I don't know how to say these German names.
I've heard that name. Yeah.
But he is the man who plays most of the instruments, and his, it's kind of like one of those like one-man black metal bands, where he does everything. But of course, he'll bring in other instrumentation and other musicians to work with him. But Popol Vuh is the name of the band, quote unquote.
It's some sort of the name is some sort of weirdly some like Mayan creation story too. So
Right.
it's got a weird sort of like sideways connection to the
And that's happenstance, right?
That's right. Yeah,
that's true.
But Herzog and Florian knew each other from playing soccer. A lot of soccer history in this together, and they liked each other a lot right from the get-go. They had a very, very, very close working relationship because obviously.
Soccer.
I know, it's amazing because
It's always soccer.
It is, yeah, it is. But of course, Florian and him worked together on so many films. You said Fitzcarraldo, Nosferatu, Heart of Glass. They did all those together, and so Herzog
Amazing.
thinks of Popol Vuh, Florian as one of the most important aspects to his movies, and it really is in this movie. And I think I heard something, I don't know the technical thing behind it, maybe you do, Marcus, but that there was sort of this choral synthesizer, this idea of like this choral voice synthesizer that was sort of
it's a
developed for this.
mellotron.
Okay.
It's a mellotron like the Beatles had or whatever. Or,
Okay. And just to help
so
folks,
those are the choral
mellotron-
setting of like it's a bunch of tape loops, that are pre-recorded sounds of like choruses going like but then every key it's connected to another tape loop or to raise the pitch.
Yeah.
It's like
So like the A key is a recording loop of a woman singing like in
right.
It's
So
like
you could switch out the tapes and stuff, and then make chords out of the choral voices and stuff. Do all this interesting
does a
stuff.
great job with it.
But it's based in like it's based in a real voice, but then it has this like total like technological bent to it. So it's this otherworldly kind of sound.
It's like you're saying the Beatles. It's the very beginning of Strawberry Fields Forever is a mellotron of the flute.
Wow. Amazing.
So
Right,
it sounds
right.
like a flute because you're hearing a flute, but it's playing like a weird piano, and it's like the way someone plays notes on a flute. So it's a
Right.
great
Or you
sound.
hear it like in Heart of the Sunrise too, that Yes song, right? That's a mellotron, right? That kind of like, or like
Definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
But it's weird. So it's got that futuristic sound, or at least like hyper modern, like kind of contrast with this period film,
Right.
in this amazing way, and they create something totally new. I mean, I can't think of an earlier film that has. You could think of 1,000 films afterwards that had this kind of soundtrack, but I can't really think of an earlier one.
I
that
think
had
a
this,
little
like, ethereal synthesizer type
of
soundtrack.
Pink Floyd with the Barbet Schroeder films in a bit,
Yeah,
like
that's
more,
true.
And the Valley. I mean,
That's
they're doing
true.
different things, and they're full
All
of
those
band.
krautrock bands too wanted to be Pink Floyd too.
yeah. Totally.
But the thing is, but the Popol Vuh soundtrack is just so. It's not a band like a rock band. There's no drums that kick in. It's very powerful music, and you're right. It's like in between everything. It's not like they got an orchestra to do like choral music, like from the 1600s or something like that, Gregorian chants. But it's also not like it doesn't sound dated like 1971, like big drums come in or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it does also sound like it's from the future too, in a strange way.
Yeah.
So it dislocates you so much.
Beautiful.
It's like almost futuristic, ancient
And-
music happening
right.
with 16 millimeter footage from the 1500s.
And it's sort of
a beautiful
introspective
place.
sounding too. It sounds like it just creates thoughts in your brain. If there's just an empty vista of someone looking out at a river.
It is.
And you have this introspective
it is
soundtrack.
spellbind.
It's like-
You could watch people sitting at a bus on their phones
I know.
for 15 minutes, or
Yeah,
I
yeah.
could, and put
Yeah.
on that song, the music of Aguirre,
yeah.
and I'd be like crying, you know.
Yeah,
it's almost
it's-
it's sort of weirdly
Let's put it that way.
participatory, like invites the audience to participate in use their brain,
Yeah.
engage their brain into adding meaning that may not be there, or bringing. I don't know, it's
Yeah.
weird. It's weird.
Philip Glass can have that effect too. It's like it's very like this celestial, it's just, it's incredible. I mean, if you guys need to write an essay or a paper, put that on, and you'll get your shit done.
just listen to it. Listen to
Yeah.
that, and Heart of Glass. I would recommend that,
Yeah.
that score
Yeah.
too.
All right,
Just
we
as
got to
a-
get.
to enjoy.
I'm staring at 18 minutes and 48 seconds and gonna have a heart attack. Okay, so real quick, just before we get into the opening of the movie, this is an interesting anecdote. Again, it's very Herzogian in terms of how they almost all died. But basically, before shooting started, when they were on their way to Machu Picchu to film this movie, Werner and the crew almost got into a fatal plane accident. Just before they shot the sequence of that descending mountain in the very beginning, they were booked on a plane. They were booked on a plane that actually crashed into the jungle and killed 94 people. They were taken off the passenger list right before the plane took off.
Jeez.
So it's so insane, and that only one 17-year-old girl miraculously survived
Oh,
that
you're talking
crash.
about that?
Yes.
Dude, that girl. There's a whole movie called Miracles Still Happen that dramatizes that story.
Well,
I love
get
that story.
this.
Yeah, and he,
Oh, right.
Yeah, and Herzog visited her, and they both went back to the location of her crash. You're talking about that crash.
That
is
crash.
related indirectly to Aguirre. Incredible. Okay.
Yeah, so
future reading on that.
Just for the viewers at home, it was one 17-year-old girl survived the crash, and Herzog later made that into a film called Wings of Hope. So check that out.
Where she revisits. They visit the site together. Yeah.
Yeah, so
that
crazy.
is amazing. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So the opening, it's amazing. Here's our first set piece. We're going to get through a bunch of these, but yeah, shot so near Machu Picchu. It was incredibly dangerous as you're seeing like over 400 extras and everybody go down this very narrow, slippery path. And it's
With
just
horses
amazing.
and armor.
Yeah. And like llamas and alpacas.
Carrying wheels.
Yeah, and cannons, and it's incredible. And it's like natives from most of the people that play the slaves in the film were these natives that lived in a village that was like 14,000 feet altitude. So just a crazy wrangling of all these different people from different walks of life and everything.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing about it is the fog is a happy accident that occurred when everybody got there. This is the first thing we're going to shoot, and the conditions were so fucking chaotic, rainy, and insane. People thought this was never going to happen, and Herzog was telling people, "Please don't quit, don't walk away, don't give up on this. We have to just wait for the fog." And the fog parted perfectly, just so the fog was rolling down the sides of the mountain, allowing them to pass through, and just so they could see everything clearly. It's amazing, and it really.
Yeah.
And he was really convincing people after that moment, like, you guys are going to be part of something that like no other film is going to achieve or see or photograph. And he's right.
He was right.
Yeah, he's totally right. So like I said earlier, most of those shots are filmed in one take. You're basically seeing all of that, like the shot of the cannon, falling down the hill and exploding. Amazing. Love that little detail that goes so well with the music too. There's like the shots of the rapids that are like in soft focus that he holds on. Super tripped out. That is incredible. Love that.
With the rocks, the rapids and the rocks jutting through.
It is, yeah. It's like a shot of just the close-up of just the rapids moving, like just the water
Yeah, I
moving,
love
and it's
that.
soft focus. It's incredible.
It looks so
Yeah.
dangerous. It looks incredibly dangerous. It looks so...
It is.
I mean, he goes back there in My Best Fiend, and the river's dried up in the dry season, and he's walking across these boulders that are like 20 feet tall, and that's what's underneath the water that you see in that scene.
Yeah.
God, I just think everything is super slippery.
Yeah,
Every
well,
step is like you're putting your life in your hand.
Anytime you see someone struggling or like trying to move in the swamp or getting around trees, all that's real. That's the real struggle they're going through in order to, do this. It's not like premeditated,
Texas Chainsaw style.
Yeah, exactly.
I love all those props that you said they're carrying down the wheel and the costumes, just those impractical velvet dresses that the women are wearing and stuff.
Yeah.
I love how that all fits, just paints the theme of what we're about to see, just the folly of what they're all undertaking, that like,
Right.
that these women are going to walk through the jungle in these like, velvet dresses or get carried in there like, whatever those carriages are that people carry on their
They're called
backs.
sedans.
Sedans, right. And the, carrying the wheels, like the wheels that the cannon go on, like they're going to be
well,
able to
what we're
push
saying
the
is like
cannons
it
through the
relates
mud
to all the goofy European functionality that they try to apply amongst like God's, like human lawless earth, where they're like, well, let's have a trial. It's absurd. Trials and signatures and like this paper deems that I own everything in front of us, and it's like they just look inherently ridiculous because Mother Nature here is going to win every time, and you see that it does, And
Yes.
we were talking about it earlier. I think of the goddamn sub that crashed near the Titanic recently, and just the folly of humans. You know what I mean? Because Mother Nature, even with the greatest technological advancements of humans, will always trump humans, especially water-related stuff. We haven't conquered water
Not
as a
at
species
all.
at all.
No.
So
No,
anyway.
you're right. All right, carrying on because I'm dying. So basically,
Go.
So the rafts you see in the film are created by the natives. It's insane. You're seeing the crew and the cast of this film basically on these rafts, as the majority of the film, of course, happens on the river, which is just insanely dangerous. You would never see a movie like that made under these conditions, of course, while the cast and crew is sleeping on huts that are built on top of these rafts that are aimlessly floating down the river. It's insane. Wow. You can actually see some of the huts that they lived in during the making of the film. A couple frames in the background, you can catch them if you look close. So pretty crazy. So anyway, the plot of the movie, of course, is that this large encampment is going to split up into two groups. One is going to go check and see if there is this, El Dorado, Golden City somewhere, and if they're going to venture out. Of course, this is led by that one dude, can't remember his name right now, and Klaus Kinski. And if they're going to go venture out for a week, if they don't find anything, they're going to be deemed as lost, and then they're going to head back. And of course, there's this omnipresent threat in the entire film of the natives who are fighting back, and they're setting traps for them. And love this little detail about how you really don't ever see them or hear them or anything in the film. And Herzog really talks about how silence in this film, the role silence plays in the movie. When you hear nothing and you hear silence, that's when things are at its most heightened, dangerous point.
Yeah. And sometimes our characters say that, like, it's getting particularly quiet. That's like death, right, guys? You know? And what I love is that unlike guns and being shot to death, it's like those arrows are so quiet that you could be standing there and then you turn to your friend you were just talking to and he's like, oh boy, like that. And you never heard the arrow, but they're like goners. And that's so chilling to me. There's just like these silent little flits happening in the air, and you're a goner.
Yeah, and I love that set piece where one of the Spanish conquistadors is like being hoisted up by the rope by his feet, like that trap.
He goes so high up, and he gets hoisted so high up into the air.
Yeah.
And the blood dripping down in the leaf. It's like it's very Predator, right?
Yeah, it is.
I was thinking about Predator in this one.
It's amazing. So, let's see. I'm looking through here. Other really crazy moment is right when you start to realize that they're cannibals, right? Which is a crazy moment of realization in this movie. And you see a quick shot of a mummy. I don't know if you guys remembered this. There's like a mummy like tied to something in there. You see it?
Yeah.
Well, again, making of anecdote here from the commentary, Herzog said that was a real mummy that Werner Herzog's brother had brought to set in Peru, but he couldn't ship it or check it as luggage, so he bought an extra plane ticket for it and sat next to it on the plane.
No way. Holy shit. Yeah. First class for the mummy.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I love that. So real mummy. Well, it gets kind of Mondo movie for a second there in the cannibal village. Yeah. And it gets pretty like fucking like hard prog rock kind of imagery, like skulls and fire and meat and bananas and and fire.
It's cool.
Yeah,
it's really cool, and I think just like obviously a big part of this movie is the slow descent into the madness that these characters inhabit, because as we said before, the movie sort of starts with this doc realism that we're rooted in. And then it starts to unfold slightly with some heightened fever dreamish poetic imagery, which is really great in the way that it's utilized in this film. One of the more ominous poetic moments that kind of, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on this, but there's a moment where anytime the horses are on the rafts, it's like really insane to me. You know that these
flipping around,
like it's like what is happening? But there's a moment when like the horse is acting up, and so they kicked the horse off the raft, like you're out of here, buddy, and the horse like swims to land. And then the camera then holds on this amazing shot of the horse just like staring back at them, like as
and he
the
has
raft
the
goes
hood, so it's so he's like he's an incongruous thing in that place, like a giraffe in the middle of the desert or something. But also he has this hood, and he's just like, what the hell am I supposed to do here? What's going on? I'm like, I'm a horse.
Taking my hood off at least.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe just as we're round robining here really quickly, like the film, it's funny because there's a slow crawling descent of madness and then also danger for those guys. But what I love is that the film, the descent picks up pace and becomes this quick succession of the most surreal parts of the film. And I think right then, in the last 10, 15 minutes of the film, that's his best filmmaking ever, whatever that's worth. And if you guys just want to just tackle that real quick and go through, just my bullet points are, it's the time of like, it's all they have to face is hunger and death. And there's the beautiful butterfly shot. There's the baby rats.
Yeah, the baby rats were just like something that just happened in there. Like the rabbits, the rats were just suddenly crawling around on this raft, which is insane. And so they just turned around and filmed it, and there was nothing planned, nothing there. It was just there.
It feels like that.
Yeah.
It definitely
like,
feels
That's
like
so
that.
Herzog.
Hollywood
My favorite line from this part of the film is meat is floating by.
Yeah.
That's the translation of the local native to what he's overhearing from when they pass by natives.
Yeah.
Meat is floating by, chilling.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Anyway.
it's this like also like leading into that ending moment, which we'll get into in 1 second, is like the sort of fever dream detachedness and stillness of the performances are really great in this too. Like you really see a lot of these long, just still sequences of the detachedness of these actors. Like there's that scene where they hang the guy, the guy who's in charge. They hang him. Who also, by the way, Tom, is one of the most famous, Cinema Novo directors from Brazil. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'll look
I can't
it up.
remember his name right now, but yeah. Anyway,
Maybe
so
Roca?
when they no, it's not him, but I can't remember his name. His name is Guy or Guy or whatever. So when they hang him, there's that amazing detached moment where just the other guy's like eating the ear of corn, like silently while he's being
with the legs in next to him swaying.
Amazing
the hung
shot.
Man.
Yeah.
Oh,
like just,
dude, totally.
Everything's getting super numb, and then of course it's then when they start going down the raft or they're going down the river. And their imagination is running wild. They are seeing things. They're seeing mirages. There's an amazing image of a boat on top of this, 100-foot tree or whatever the fuck it is.
And they're debating the mirage. You know, it's so beautiful because it's like the 16 millimeter camera reality is seeing it. There is a boat in the top of this tree. How could that possibly happen? Yeah. And they're saying like, I'm seeing a mirage, the slave henchman people. But of course, Kinski's like, no, there's a boat and it's right up there. Let's go get it. And I don't know who to believe, my eyes or Kinski or
supposedly in the original script, there was like a reference to like a conquistador who had gone down the river first in a boat and disappeared, and that was supposed to be like originally it was an idea to like leave it as like that was going to be like a reference to that story that you heard earlier, but then they decided to take all those references out of the movie and edit the script basically so that it had that that thing that Tom's saying it plays as an
ambiguity
and
it's really like them losing all their sense of reality. That little moment with the boat on top of the tree is followed up very quickly with just that other dude who's numbly hit with an arrow in his leg, and he's just no selling, as we say in the wrestling business, the arrow to the leg.
Nice.
And it's
what does
amazing.
he say? What's the great quote?
Not an arrow.
This is not an arrow. It's almost getting like deadpan Python or something, Monty Python.
It is getting humorous.
And like
it is.
Yeah, no, it is. There's comedy in this film.
There's comedy.
There's one line.
The
that's
guy
almost
says like
famous.
the arrows coming back. These longer arrows are coming back in style or something.
Yeah.
That's like the
Yeah,
biggest
exactly.
joke in there.
And that feels like whoa,
Yeah.
it's the 20th
Yeah.
century. It's 1972. You know, like it's
Yeah.
like it is like an absurdism, and it adds to. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. Is in part that there's dark things happening.
Yeah.
And these people are hallucinating. But just that line is there is no
It's amazing.
arrow. That
It's
really
amazing.
kills me. And it just but it stays quiet. They're all
like Godard or
quietly
something.
dying.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's
Yeah,
like
it is
Jean-Luc
like
Godard.
Godard.
Yeah, it is like a Godard thing or something. But it's
It's like suddenly
yeah.
Weekend is suddenly in the film.
Yeah,
You're right.
totally.
Good call. Thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, it's amazing. And then of course, you know, we get to that. Just have to mention it real quick. Beautiful, iconic scene. It's the poster. Or I think it was a poster of the DVD when Aguirre's daughter is shot with the arrow, and you don't see
it's
the
great.
impact. There's no reaction. She just collapses in his arms beautifully. It's this very stylized, tender moment, and it's beautiful and iconic. It's amazing. I love that. And there's something great about that. And then of course, the big set piece of the 400 monkeys that were purchased for this movie, unleashed on this boat, and it's an incredible scene.
Brilliant.
And it's
Brilliant.
amazing. And you can see, you know, Herzog's driving the boat that's circling the raft at a low speed, just low enough so it's not creating too many
And
waves.
let's get the Popol Vuh music back.
yeah,
right?
right. Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
reprised.
It's it's one of the most
I
insane
love
shots
it.
in cinema. And it's interesting to hear Herzog talk about it. It's just like you know, you can't choreograph these scenes. You just have to follow the monkeys. You know, and there's that amazing shot too where fucking Kinski holds that monkey, which was just improvised and like looking at him.
It's like you and me, guy. We're gonna get to El Dorado. And the monkey's like, it just that is the definition of egomaniacal madness, like it personified in or whatever, you know, represented in that shot of him, like, you're my new, you know, like right hand man here, you know, and it's a fucking little spider monkey.
Well, that's what in your answer. That's the answer to your question earlier. Like, was it worth it to have a guy like Kinski around? In that moment, it is.
Yeah.
To have a guy that will just reach down and pick up a monkey and start talking to it, and then toss it to the ground indiscriminately. You know,
Amen.
Totally. And so,
You're right.
again, this image of circling the raft, the dead bodies, Aguirre
it so
stumbling, and you know, as Herzog says, the monkeys have taken over, and he says in the commentary, he ends it by saying, "I have no like watching this final shot, this incredible shot." He's like, "I have no idea how this fell into my lap," and it's like seeing him react to this in the way that. Like, as we talked about at the top of the hour of like opening this book randomly at his friend's house, you know, writing this script, all the things that led to almost dying in this plane crash. And you've got this shot in the middle of the Amazon with a bunch of fucking monkeys, Klaus Kinski.
And the craziest actor on earth.
What?
Yeah,
How,
on a raft.
you know, like that's insane. Like how you get to that point in life, you know?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
real
and it was
moment where
worth
you're like,
the art muses singing through you, right? You know?
yeah. Absolutely.
And again,
Absolutely.
all to the tune of that incredible music, you know?
Yeah. Oh my God. It's such an amazing movie. So many. Go ahead. You have something to say?
Oh, just that construction of that shot of all the monkeys, and he's like king of the monkeys now. Everyone else is gone. He's ordering them around. He's got plans still. You know, it's almost like a political cartoon or something come to life, or like a court gesture or something, like giving a broader meaning, like a parody that's giving a broader meaning to like what's going on. It's incredible that someone can take
it's symbolic.
something that could have been like a sketch like that and bring it to life and have it work, you know, and have it feel profound and have it be such a memorable moment. You know, it just takes a lot of skill, I think.
Phew, yeah. And just like, yeah, absolutely. Getting out there into the field with not much money, not many crew, not many resources, you know, catching the fish as your lunch for the day. Like, you know, it takes a lot to be able to make a movie like that. And they certainly don't do that enough anymore. So it's a one-of-a-kind thing, that's for sure. Aguirre, Wrath of God, man.
Yeah,
Incredible.
Very special film. All right.
Boom.
1972 in the can.
Woo! Man, I'm staring at 800 notes here, but I think we got most of it in. But man,
Likewise, I think so.
absolutely, that was 1 fucking hour on Aguirre Wrath of God. I mean, literally one of my favorite movies of all time.
Sure.
You know, just in terms of what an incredible achievement it is. It's amazing. It's a mind
for
blower.
like input output, you know, it's like the budget going in, and for like the level of like film, the epic coming out, you know, it's pretty amazing.
And I'm going to say this again. Aguirre exists, and that's why we hate like Psycho 1998 so much. Because it's if there wasn't an Aguirre and a few other movies like it, then I'd be like, all right, Psycho 1998, you know, whatever. But it's like, just don't do that. Stop.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or Requiem for a Dream, you know, like.
Well, you know, there are, I mean, no, you're right. I mean, there are a couple scenes though in Aguirre that are, you know, I don't know, they're
Kind of slow.
He's right. I know. It's true.
No,
I was looking at my watch a lot.
No.
Fair enough.
All right.
Okay.
Everybody.
So that was 72.
That was 1 fucking hour on Aguirre Wrath of God from 1972. It's time, guys, to talk about 1973.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be
The year of Watergate and
Houses of the Holy.
Houses of the Holy. That's right. It was the first year of hip hop. This is hip hop's 50th anniversary right now. So this was 50 years ago, 1973.
Yeah.
How about them apples? So another, mambo jumbo year.
It's also the year of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath as well too. So there's that, baby. All right. So of course, I'm sure you've been following along with us on this journey in terms of what we're doing here. As we mentioned at the top of the show, we're putting out a poll. We're poll crazy here. And as you're listening to this episode right now, you can go to the 1 fucking hour Instagram at 1 fucking hour, click on the stories, and vote for our next episode, which is going to be a film from 1973. And we've narrowed it down to 4 possible films that you will pick, one that we will cover for the next episode. And it was tough to narrow these down because there's some heavy bangers in 1973. Shit's getting pretty real. And we just, again, like, I think you guys out there are more into not the most obvious, biggest blockbuster films of those years, but I guess just what's, more interesting on the flip side of these. So we're going to get into something. There are some monsters in here for sure. But, it's not, but we omitted films like The Exorcist and films that have been talked about quite a bit in favor of these films.
We were really tempted to do The Sting.
Oh, my God. All right. So let's talk over the 4 options for the poll. Here it is, one by one. We'll tell you a little bit about what to expect. So pick one of these 4 films. Here we go for 1973. First choice, this is a banger. Here we go. We got Terrence Malick's first flick, Badlands.
Forget it. I don't know. Anybody?
It's probably going to win.
Jump ball? It's really good. Oh, you know what? I'll put it this way.
Yeah.
I throw on TCM a lot. It's on TCM a lot, Badlands is. It's always starting, like he's always the garbage man about to get fired, the very beginning of the film Badlands. And I go, oh, snap, all right, Badlands. And then guess what? An hour and a half later, I'm like, oh, I just watched Badlands again.
Yeah.
I can't not watch it if I turn the channel and it's on.
Yeah.
It's just Badlands, really.
Yeah, man. It's a killer flick. It's amazing.
My favorite kind of Bonnie and Clyde story. You know what I mean? Like that's probably the best film of that, besides Natural Born Killers.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna fucking say that.
Of course.
All right. Okay, so option 1 is 1 fucking hour on Badlands. Option number 2 is another heavy hitter. We have 1 fucking hour on Don't Look Now by Nicholas Rogue. I mean, just it's a monster. It's an editing monster. It's incredible. There's probably a lot to get into there in terms of, the stylistic flourishes of the film, the script,
It's like Nick Rogue does horror, in his Nick Rogue way, and the opening is, I'm going to get hyperbolic. The opening is spellbinding, it's like another Aguirre opening scene where I'm just like, I'm in awe of it. It's and in a very different way, but that opening part of Don't Look Now, even if the rest of the film is whatever, it's not. It's just like, oh my God, Just
Yeah.
like the slide and the kid and the
I know.
drowning.
It's
Shit.
insane. So Don't Look
And it'd
Now.
be our third rogue too, right? So
It would be the third
God,
rogue.
would it?
We
Oh,
did
you're right.
we did
like Nick Rogue
Walkabout.
here.
We did Walkabout and Bad Timing, and this would round it out with Don't Look Now. So that's option number 2. Option number 3 is a deeper cut flick, but about a very, I guess now we can say, topical subject matter, and also subject matter most of you are familiar with, but this is a really special film documenting that. It is a documentary, and we're talking about Manson from 1973, which is really the first documentary about the Manson family and the Manson family murders. And Tom, why is this prescient?
Well, I'm just hearing that amazingly, one of the Manson "quote unquote" girls, Leslie Van Houten, she has always submitted for parole, and it's always denied. It's stopped at the governor's office. But Newsom, I think like yesterday, Gavin Newsom, the California governor said, like, I'm not going to put a stop if the parole board gives her parole. And they are signaling that they are. So her lawyer's saying, like, there's nothing stopping this anymore because it's always just gotten to the desk of the governor. So she's going to be on parole. And she's going to be on the show in a couple weeks here. All right. But anyway, but this film, anyway, it's topical. Leslie Van Houten. She's going to be released. And
it's available again, right? It's not like, because it was gone for a while, right? You couldn't watch it.
Yeah. It's been unavailable in like 2 different strange ways. And I can get into all that. I befriended the film's director. I think it's just, forget the subject for a moment. I think it's a really killer documentary.
I agree.
And there's a great backstory of how he got like access to the family. Like he was, it's a documentary, right? And in a real sense, and he's a fly on the wall, like we've been talking about all night, where he just hung out at their ranch and just kind of lived among the natives because he was a freak. He was a long hairer, so they trusted him, and so he got incredible access. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But the thing that's really weird, it was nominated for an Academy Award.
Right.
Like there's footage of like Elizabeth Taylor going like, and Manson. Lance Hendrickson, whatever the director's name is, and that's just so weird, and it's deservedly so. So, Manson, if you haven't seen it, it's really cool. I don't know how it's available.
It's on YouTube.
Now.
It is on YouTube.
Okay, it's on YouTube. Great,
it's
good.
on YouTube.
So, if you haven't seen it, really check it out. And even if you're like kind of repulsed by like true crime kind of cringe, it's also just an interesting documentary. Really,
it is. So Manson from 1973, the deeper cut option, but definitely a very, like I said, topical subject matter. We get into a lot of stuff with the movie and the Manson family and the backstory. It's a cool movie. I think that'd be an episode for people, even if they hadn't seen the film. It might be interesting. So putting my thumb on the scale on that one a little bit, just because it doesn't have the notoriety as some of these other movies. And then number 4, I mean, I'd love to do any of these. So, and then number 4 is we've been trying to get an Altman on the docket here for One Fucking Hour a few times, so maybe it'll win. Here we go. We, of course, have One Fucking Hour on The Long Goodbye, starring Elliot Gould. Of course, the Raymond Chandler adaptation. I mean, what is there to say about this? It's an incredibly, cool, naturalistic, 70s sun-drenched noir.
Right. Well, it's part of that genre of they're called like, well, maybe I just call it that, but like the shaggy PIs, like like the shaggy, shabby, sort of schlumpy, sort of vaguely hippie, half-smoked cigarette, unlit in your mouth, kind of the shaggy PI. Private investigator. And I'm a big Elliot Gould guy, and this is maybe his shining hour. Like I could watch 90 minutes of him like trying to feed his cat. And there's a lot of that here. So it has those kind of charms. It's one of those films where it's not really about the plot, which is a very Altman thing. It's not really like plot driven. It's lived in. It's the character, the characters. And it's a good document of like that kind of sour, like orange sunshine, kind of mid-70s Southern California. It's great. I mean, a lot of people know and love Long Goodbye. And we really should be getting some Altman, jumping off here. And we're throwing our first salvo out there.
There we go. So there's your 4 flicks. Head over to our Instagram page at One Fucking Hour. Click on the stories, and you can vote for what flick from 1973 we're going to be doing. Either Badlands, Don't Look Now, Manson, or The Long Goodbye. There's your 4. Vote now if you're watching this in the first 24 hours of...
I like polls.
Yeah, you're going to be...
Goldmember, nothing?
Yeah, right.
Austin Powers' third movie.
I love polls.
I'm sure we'll be doing an audio commentary of that film very soon.
Any day now.
Yeah. So, and you can also vote, of course, if you go right now, also for which audio commentary track we'll be recording next for our Patreon, patreon.com/onefuckinghour. That's the best way to support the show. It's just $5 a month, and you get unfettered access. That's the only way you can get our audio commentary tracks, our feature-length ones that we're recording in classic DVD style, DVD special feature style. And so you can vote on one of these 4 films. It's the most demented lineup of 4 films that have ever been put together. That is...
I think so.
Yeah.
I'd say so.
One more time, it's either going to be Requiem for a Dream... Cringe.
In a bad way.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Keynote, asterisk that. Scarface, of course, with Pacino. Little Man by the Wayans Brothers. Google that if you're not familiar with that one. And or David Lynch's Blue Velvet. Now,
never heard of it.
Yeah. We have not done any of these films in proper 1 fucking hour full 1 fucking hour form. We have touched on Requiem for a Dream on the show before, but we haven't gone to the full hour on any of these movies. So this will be the only way you'll get us talking about these movies. It's either going to be Requiem, Cringe, Scarface, Little Man, Yay, or Blue Velvet. So let us know what you want to see on the Patreon. And if you're not signed up, please do that. It's patreon.com/onefuckinghour. Again, the best way to support the show. All right, guys. Shall we get out of here? I think we're ready. Should we get it?
Yeah.
I mean, we can't let anybody go, though, without that sweet old
Momen
of Zen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, I guess we'll see you next week. And, happy voting. Get in those polls. And we'll see you soon.
Polls.
Bye.
And the wrath of God. Who else is with me?
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
That was wicked, man.